Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sketching out some hollyhock flowers. I'm just using a regular B pencil. It's probably a 2B HB, just something light that I can kind of sketch out the overall shapes. Recently I was reading about hollyhock flowers. I've always loved them. They're very beautiful, but I found out a little bit more information about them. Most flowers have some kind of symbolism that's tied to them, and the hollyhock is tied to ambition. And the reason for that is because they can grow in a variety of different kinds of conditions, and they're strong plants and they grow upright. And I thought, well, that's really cool. I think that's a great ambition, is the symbolism of a hollyhock. But I'm just kind of sketching out. I'm going to be using my micron pen and my Sharpie pens today, and I think I'm going to also use, I have another fine liner it's a Copic brand fine liner. So I'm going to finish sketching this out really quickly. Okay, I am going to use one of my micron pens. It's a pretty fine pen, and I'm going to outline all of my basic shapes before I add my values. And I'm drawing on watercolor paper right now. I'm going to watercolor paint this drawing when I'm finished, and this is something that I do quite often. I'll do an ink pen drawing, and then I will do a watercolor, over it to add some more values or add vibrant colors. But as I start laying in some values, I'm using my Sharpie pen, and the way that I add values is I use a series of hashing marks, and my hatching marks are going to follow the shape of my petals. And so I'm not making straight hatching marks. My hatching marks are going to be very organic. They're going to be rounded, and then I add a lot of hatching marks together in areas that I want to be darker. So anywhere there would be a shadow or just a natural darker value, I'm going to add a lot of lines. But all of my lines go in the same direction. All of my lines are curved or organic to mimic the shapes that I'm shading in. And I use my ink pens very similarly than I would a graphite pencil. I'm shading but with ink, and because ink does not smudge or smear, or at least it shouldn't, you just have to build up your layers instead of smearing graphite like you would with a graphite pencil. So I'm going to start just adding more layers and layers and layers of lines. It's exactly what I do, and I always follow the shape of the way that the plant or the flower would grow. Okay, so I'm continuing a lot of the same things. It's very repetitive what I do. I find it relaxing sometimes when you do something over and over. Drawing can be relaxing, knitting or any other kind of craft that's repetitive can be pretty relaxing. But I really enjoy this process, and I use this process in many different ways. I'm drawing different kinds of flowers, insects, birds, and other things from nature. But what I'm curious to know is how many of you that are watching this video have drawn with ink pens and either felt successful or felt frustrated. It can be intimidating at first because you can't erase the lines once you're done. But I really enjoy, and I think it's beautiful, the contrast between really dark areas and really light areas. I think it makes for an interesting drawing. And I always usually lay down a light graphite sketch to kind of guide me along, so I'm not just doing it blindly. But I switch back to my Sharpie pen and my Micron pen. If you're just starting out drawing with ink pens, I recommend just getting some Sharpie pens. They are one of my favorites. I use them for everything, not just drawing. And they don't bleed through. They flow on the paper really nicely, and they're the most inexpensive. So I think they're a great practice tool, but I use them all the time. As I'm drawing this Hollyhock, I'm going to add some things that I didn't sketch out earlier, because I'm also thinking about composition. And when putting together a composition, you want to think about balance. And as I was drawing this Hollyhock, I decided, and you'll see in a little bit, but I decided that it wasn't balanced enough for me, and that I needed to add a little bit more beyond my sketch. I will be adding some more leaves on the left hand side, because I felt like it was a little bit too upright at the top. But I'm still working on this. One thing I also realized in making this video, I need a better background. My background is an old board that I used in college for my art classes, and it's got tons of scratches and paint on it. And maybe you didn't notice, but I'm sure that's all you're looking at now. But my next video, I have a much cleaner surface that I'm working on. This is like my go-to surface. This is where I create a lot of art, and it protects the surface below. But I just keep looking at it and thinking I could have done better on that. But anyways, I'm still inking, hatching away, building those values, building those lines, on and on and on. Okay, now that I've got most of my basic shapes finished, and I've added a lot of texture to them, I'm going to grab a pen that's going to have a little bit broader, darker, heavier line, and I'm going to start blacking out some areas and really laying in some darker values. When I draw, I like to create contrast and have some really dark values placed down next to really light or white values, just to kind of create that contrast. And I also like to vary my line. So I've got a lot of really thin shading lines, and then I'll go in with this thicker brush tip and lay in a different kind of line, because I think variety of line is important as well. It creates interest, it creates texture, it creates depth. And this little pen that I got, I still need to figure out where to order more, but I love the brush tip. It just flows on the paper very smoothly. Like I mentioned before, I am working on watercolor paper. Everything I'm using is a permanent ink, and my plan is to do a light watercolor over it to kind of bring out those petals and flowers and things like that. I'll probably use some pinks and some blues and just some vibrant colors, but I'm going in and laying down some heavy lines, and I think it creates more volume in some of the areas that I'm working in. I am overall satisfied with the composition of this. I probably will draw some more flowers with different kinds of ink flowers. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's very repetitive and relaxing, like I mentioned before, but I'm just going to continue laying in those dark values. It's usually the last thing that I do. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this video so far. I've enjoyed drawing it, that's for sure. And if you want to see more of my work, go ahead and subscribe. If you enjoy this video, give me a thumbs up, please. And my next video will be a follow-up to this drawing, showing my watercolor process over an ink drawing. Have a wonderful and creative day, and I hope that you take some time for yourself to create some art.